name is Earl Carpenter. I am a performer in musical theatre, and I am currently, I have returned to play the Phantom in Andrew Lloyd Webber's production of The Phantom of the Opera here in London's glittery West End.
Amazing. So you have quite the CV. You know, you've been in Beauty and the Beast, Les Mis, The Witch of the Beastwick. I could go on. But where did it all begin? And can you remember the time when you knew you wanted to work professionally within the industry?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think for me, my passage into musicals came from, I think, probably a trying childhood. I think that would be the best way of putting it. My original dream was to go into the RAF and be a pilot, actually. But through being ginger and called Earl as a child wasn't a great combination. But I found kind of solace, and I found a very safe environment that was drama, and found it very non-judgmental, and I was able to be me and to explore and all those types of things. And I soon became very much in love with the medium of being in theatre. And then probably towards the middle of my teens, I got my very first hi-fi from my dad, and accompanying it was a double cassette with a musical called The Phantom of the Opera. And that kind of really was the gateway into loving musicals. And I found myself idolizing Michael Crawford, because obviously I knew him as a performer in the kind of BBC sitcom Some Others Do Have 'Em, playing Frank Spencer. But I also loved they televised Barnum when he was Barnum, and I just fell in love with that type of person who could do all these incredible things, which I was kind of experiencing. And then I got into amateur dramatics, and it was through all of that, and then realizing the fact that I failed every single exam at school except for art and drama, that my options were few and far between. But the path into theatre was one that I could go for. And I trained as an actor. We didn't do anything to do with singing or musical theatre whatsoever. That came from being introduced to kind of the amateur dramatics world around the Bournemouth and Southampton area. So that was kind of my apprenticeship in singing. And then with a group of friends down in Ringwood, we started up a theatre company, and we kind of did it that way. Because when I went to a little college down in Poole in Dorset, part of Bournemouth and Poole College was Jellicoe Theatre, and we were never allowed to just be an actor. We had to learn everything. The ideology was, well, if you want to be in theatre, then you need to know exactly what it's all about. So we had to learn lights, sound, stage management, props, set design, costumes, everything, even like arts administration. And so that kind of gave me the tools to be confident about starting up a theatre company. Well, I say confident, but slightly youthful bravado as well. And that became very much my love of producing. But it was doing that for a couple of years. I then realized, as a performer, I do want to have a go at performing professionally. So through having the experience of producing, I got together a little one-man show, because I kind of knew that was the be-all and end-all of 3 years at college, and £80,000 later, that it was the showcase. So I managed to get a couple of friends together. A friend of mine invited his agent down to come and see me, and literally 6 weeks later, after doing it, I was treading the boards professionally with Mr. Bill Kenwright. So, and the rest, as they say, is history.
That's madness. That's such a big journey for you. And I guess as well, then, it was kind of important for you then to kind of draw on those experiences you've had through that process, not just being an actor, but being like the producer side of it. So do you feel like they've really benefited you in where you are now?
I think so. I mean, it gives me an understanding of the industry, an understanding of how it works. why it works the way it works. And it stops me, I think, as a performer asking silly questions, because I kind of already know the answer, and I know why certain things have had to materialize as they are, or why we're being paid, because you do get the all the information when you dabble with the other side, knowing how much productions can cost and all those types of things. But I think it's also given me, yes, I've chased a career in musical theatre, but I've also, I've always wanted to be a working actor. I don't think, particularly in the UK, if you get to a certain level, it's very difficult to sustain that, because there just isn't the work, there isn't we don't have that type of, we have celebritydom as such, but not in the world that we are. So, and actually it was leaving Phantom the first time round when I realized, yes, okay, that was very much the pinnacle. But if I want to work, I've got to forget the fact that I've been Phantom. You kind of got to go, okay, well, what's next? What job is next? And that's what's enabled me longevity. And actually, this year is my 30th year as a working performer in the industry.
Wow. And I guess as well, like you touched on it, your career kind of hasn't always stayed here in the UK. You've kind of gone across the globe as well. So do you feel like that's something that everybody should kind of consider who's going into this industry? Because I feel like,
there's a fascination. Go on, say that again. Sorry.
It's because obviously a lot of people that are pursuing the career kind of always see as West End being their end goal, don't they? So have you kind of had that experience where it's kind of been like, you need to open up to other opportunities and stuff?
I think that there is. The West End's an odd thing, and I think it's lovely, to obviously have on the CV West End shows, but theatre as a whole, it's more about just the West End, and I think through loving touring, which I do, you just get to see so much more. You get to experience different audiences. You get to experience different productions, because obviously there's only a finite amount of product that goes into the West End, whereas touring, there are so many more choices of work. And I don't know, it's weird, because I like I said, when you go into the West End for the first time, you kind of think, well, that's it. I've arrived, therefore I shall forever work. And there's a kind of a naive expectation of the entitlement that might potentially bring. And it doesn't work like that at all. You've really got to go, okay, well, I need to get out on the road. And my attitude about touring has always been that to a band gigging, a band to get its followers needs to gig. And it's exactly the same for me. Every show that I have done, and I've been lucky enough to do as a principal, every city you go to, you get reviewed. If you come into a long-running show as a principal, you don't get reviewed. So if you're looking at how do you create a base of social media presence or that type of thing, it's about getting out there, not just about sitting in a long-running show in the West End, because then also a lot of the times that you're just fulfilling a role that is just exposed to tourism and not necessarily exposed to the British public, and the same then goes for touring abroad. It's exactly the same premise, but there are also so many perks with touring abroad as well, so it's, but as an individual, as an adult, as a human being, what extraordinary way to see the world and to see the country by actually getting out there and having those experiences, and not falling into that trap of just commuting from Forest Hill or wherever into the West End on a daily basis, which just drives me insane anyway. The kind of the repetition of duplicating. I already struggle with the duplication of what we did the night before anyway, but to add in the same commute for a year or 2 years, it's just like. So the idea of actually when you walk out of the stage door every 4 weeks or 2 weeks or 1 week, it's different. The world is different, and I think that's very, very exciting. And I think that variety has helped me, kind of continue in this career as I have.
Definitely. And have you had like a moment in your career when you've been like traveling around the world that really sticks with you?
All of it does.
Really?
All of it does. I mean, and again, if one of your questions are going to be, what's your favorite role? I don't have a favorite role, because they have all offered something very, very different. They've all ticked a box. They've all, touched a part of me that, the another role would not. They've all given me opportunities that other roles have not. So it's, no, I mean, every single opportunity I've had has been extraordinary. If I was to be specific, I think my opening night on Broadway will be something that will forever stay with me, because that truly was an extraordinary experience, and one of which I will never relive. I think, because having that first time on Broadway is just amazing.
Amazing. So you are currently back at Phantom at the moment for a limited run. So what is it like to return to a role that you've done before? Does it feel like it's come natural to you, or have you kind of, found your feet with it again?
It's been very, very interesting. A friend of mine asked me to sum up my experience in 4 words. She said, because you just waffle if you don't. So I said, okay. I said, exhausting, extraordinary, triggering, and consuming. That's what this role is. And it is very, very bizarre. I mean, I first stepped into Her Majesty's as walking cover Phantom 20 years ago. So I have a lot of history with this building. And I keep doing things in kind of automatic mode. Silly little things like throwing something into the bin, which isn't there on this time round. It's been moved, but it's always been there, and there's been a lot of that. And there's been some changes, which coming back to this has been very difficult to kind of just switch off what I remember to learn something new. But I've got there. But it is amazing to be able to come back to a role that I never thought I would play ever again. But to be able to come back actually with like 12 years experience. So to be a lot more confident with it, to be a lot more at ease with it, to understand it a lot better than I did, and to understand the big picture, all the other components that make the moments of storytelling unravel as the evening goes on. I get it more now than ever before. So that, I think, has been lovely. And as much as I am incredibly grateful, because this has come at a really a stressful time, because of, obviously, I mean, we've all been affected by the last 3 years, and as much as I've been lucky enough to have done the Les Mis concert throughout the COVID chapter, this could not have come at a better time. I was selling things just to kind of pay the rent. But I am also pleased because it does remind you of how much time is spent sat in a chair having all that stuff stuck on your face. So I'm also grateful that I'm only doing 6 weeks. So, but it is a way of life. How I live my life, how I live my day to day is all about the show in the evening, because it's not a role that comes easy. It's not a sing that comes easy. No. I really have to work at it. So anything that impedes that, I need to knock it on the head. So I'm very good. I look forward to a drink of alcohol on a Saturday night rather than during the week, because I know I just can't do it. So, that's what's been, but it has been incredible coming back. It's been lovely seeing some people that are still here as well, some of the crew. And it's magical, and it allows me to enjoy it a lot more than maybe I did, in the past.
And I guess because as well, like, this production has such an extensive history, a lot of people have played Phantom over the years. So besides yourself, is there any people that have played Phantom that you've kind of gone, wow, like that stuck with me? Or have you
I've
seen
never,
it with other...
I've never watched it.
Really?
I've never seen Phantom of the Opera. Only other than watching the little bits and pieces, maybe that I, during rehearsals. No, I've never watched Phantom. Even when I first joined this company, I had never seen this production. I'd only been aware of, obviously Michael Crawford and various other guys that played the role up to that point. But yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of my friends have played the role, like John Owen Jones and Ramin and 𝗘𝗺 and stuff like that. But the thing about this role, everyone brings something different to it.
Yeah.
Whether it be, their physicality or the tonality of voice or acting decisions, everybody brings something different to it. And obviously I've obviously seen moments of John and Ramin and 𝗘𝗺 and things, and it's an unbreakable show, and we all sit within the parameters of what we're all asked to do. But yeah, I mean, if there is anyone that I would like to have seen, that would have been Anthony Warlow, who's an Australian musical theatre performer, who I would have adored to have seen. I met Anthony, however, when we did the 25th anniversary of Phantom of the Opera at the Royal Albert Hall, which was an absolute treat. So that was very good. But no, so from that point of view, I have never sat in the auditorium from beginning to end watching Phantom of the Opera. There you go. It's out. It's public.
It's now out there. Everyone's gonna be like, really? So, as well as it obviously being like one of the longest running musicals that there's been in London's West End, it has such a massive history. Why do you think Phantom has stood the test of time when there's so many new musicals coming in? What do you think it is about that story, you think?
Well, there's something compelling about the style in which it's designed, that kind of Gothic, kind of 18th century style, and it is an extraordinary love story. It's a real Beauty and the Beast type of story, and I think that in its own right is the key, I think, to why people love it. And it's that thing about the way that this works the best is when the audience kind of feel for the Phantom at the end. I know Christine obviously departs with Raoul, but the audience should go, no, don't leave him, and I think from that point of view, but I do think it's testament to, the show's original director, Hal Prince, and the pictures that he directed and created with the entire team. That's what makes it special. And I think everybody in it treats it with the sensitivity and the care that it deserves. And I think that in its own right is another reason why it does continue in the way that it does. And, there's nothing else like it. No. So I think that's, and that's why it is still, one of the best musical love stories in the West End and around the world.
Certainly. And has there been, going through Phantom and stuff, is there a moment in this show that really sticks with you, or like is the most memorable section of the show for you?
That's a really difficult one to answer because it probably changes on a daily basis depending on how I'm feeling, what bits work and what bits didn't work. Because, to say that every show was the same would be a slight little lie, because, it depends on who's on as Christine. It depends what the mood is of the building or maybe what's happened in the day. Every performance is a little unique to the last, even though the audiences would not really see that. So I think it's a difficult question. I would be not servicing that question well because, like I said, every show is different. Every show has been different. I mean, there's still moments when you kind of go, huh, I'm playing the Phantom. You know, and it's moments like that which are nice to kind of sit in, you know, for a little bit and not take it for granted, and you know, and again know who has played the role in the past, and you know, and not many people get this opportunity to play this role, and you know, I'm privileged to be one of those who have, and to have played it as many times as I have, and in various guises as well, because obviously we did the other Cameron Mackintosh version. So yeah, it's been, yeah, I think it's I don't think there's one particular moment that really makes you kind of be aware of it in that sense, but I think it's just, yeah, each day brings something new.
Definitely. And when you were kind of developing the Phantom's character, how long did that take, that process?
3 weeks. Yeah, that's as long as you get, pretty much. And it's interesting you say developing the character. I mean, the character's already there.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much is being done for you. You know, there were decisions made before actors turned up. You know, the way the score has been written, the instruments that are used throughout, you know, the kind of orchestral storytelling, the pictures that are painted by the design team, the lighting team, the wardrobe, the set, and all that type of stuff. There's so much that is already dictating, you know, the arc of the evening, and then they go and spoil it by putting an actor in it. So I think it's, you know, so from that point of view, I think all those elements are super important.
Yeah, they really are. So after Phantom, what do you hope, or do you have an idea what you'll be doing next?
No, absolutely not at all. God, I mean, I'm unemployed again. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And at the moment, our industry is broken. It's going to go through some extraordinary tough times, I think, ahead. You know, it's obviously there's a big thing about, you know, the increase of actors' wages and stuff like that. But that's a very difficult conversation, because the cost of running these theatres now have gone up through the roof. You know, and well beyond the type of thing that, you know. But it's so I don't know. I have no idea, and that really is, you know, a truthful answer. Yeah. I am unemployed in 6 weeks' time. You know, and so I have to find a way of, you know, paying the rent like everybody else at the end of that 6 weeks. So yeah. So there you go. That's my answer.
So one final question then for you, Earl.
Yeah.
If people haven't come to see Phantom, because there are going to be people, it took me a long time.
Of course there are.
Phantom. What would you say to them, and how would you like sell the show to them?
I think Phantom has something that not many shows have. It's still a black box. It's still not all the information is given to you. You know, the sets aren't these extraordinary kind of audio visually type of worlds that we see with a lot of stuff. You know, it gives the audience the opportunity to use their imagination. You know, the love story to one side. I think it's an extraordinary bit of escapism. I think if you wanted that, and I think who doesn't right now, then this show is definitely worth the price of the ticket. And it is a bit of musical theatre history. You know, it is 38 years old, 39. And I think to be a part of a group of people that have been able to witness it, I think it's definitely, that is something worth considering if you were wanting to come to a performance in London's West End.
Thank you so much, Earl, for chatting to us today.
It's been a pleasure. Not at all.
Good luck with the rest of the run with Phantom.
Thank you very much indeed.